Hi, Ruchi. Thank you so much for joining us on the Safety Connect podcast. And to everybody who is listening to the Safety Connect podcast, Ruchi is currently lead HSC for Medtronic India. And prior to that, Ruchi has worked in companies like Marico, as well as Tata Group companies like Tata Motors. So we're delighted to have you on the podcast today. Welcome.
Thanks, Tanmay, for that introduction, and thanks for keeping it brief. Yeah. It is I would say it's a privilege for me to be here because I've listened to a lot of podcasts before, and it's a lot of learning, and it's always a good platform to share the experiences that we had across the different companies that we have worked for. So, thanks again for having me here.
Thank you. Thank you once again. And today we're going to be talking about something very, very important, which is when it comes to safety leadership and safety mindset, right? We see that, a lot of companies have like fantastic leaders, and it takes a lot for them to even get to that stage where, safety becomes top of the mind and also to inculcate that into every single person in the company. So we're going to touch upon that today. But before that, I wanted to understand from you, like what got you into safety?
Well, it wasn't a straight line. Let me be very clear. I never thought that I'll come into this profession. I started my career into manufacturing setup, and I was looking after quality as a process quality assurance lead there. And I was always curious to know as to what happens to the people because I'm always talking about OEE. I'm talking about the effectiveness of the line, how efficient the line is, and when I was shifting a line from Sweden to India, that time also it was always like restricted to systems, checklists, compliance. Nobody was talking about what happens to the people, what is actually going. But working around with diverse organizations and leaders showed me something deeper. And eventually, I understood that safety is not like just on the paper, it is not just compliance, it's about people and their choices. And I've had the privilege of working with leaders like Mr. Ratan Tata, where I understood that it's actually a leadership philosophy. It's nothing like what we talk about the compliance or whatever it is, it remains on the paper. But the actual philosophy which comes out, it shifted my perspective. Nothing like checklist. It is all about culture. It is all about no rules. It is about the responsibility that we are talking about. There's nothing like have to. It is want to. We want to do it. We want to do it for our people. And I've seen leaders who treat safety just like a tick in the box. You would have seen more than me. But I've also seen leaders who treat it as a value. As I mentioned earlier about Mr. Ratan Tata, the difference is profound as you would like see and you would have observed even in your stints with different companies that you work with. When safety is personal, it inspires ownership and culture. My perspective has evolved from seeing safety as a basic function, just a function, to seeing that mindset change, that culture change that defines how we care for our people, how we lead, and ultimately how we succeed. So that integration, not keeping it as a side business or a side dish, but integrating it every time that we are talking about. I think that's how I have learned it over my experience of all the varied and the diverse organizations that I have worked for.
Interesting. So how does one spot a good leader who for whom safety really matters? What are their attributes?
I don't want to be biased for the EHS per se, but I'll give you one example. So I remember long back in my career, I was a manager, a supervisor actually. He was taking me on the line, and I saw a person just removing his helmet. So I was like, why is he removing? So I understood that it was very hot and all, so he didn't wanted to actually wear it. But when I asked the manager the same question, he just shrugged me and he said it happens sometimes. It's okay, it's okay. So then this is when it struck me. And if we are celebrating the speed, we're celebrating the results every time, safety is getting sidelined, as I mentioned earlier. But in places, I've also seen leaders that it is not a rule somewhere or anything, but the person was supposed to wear gloves. And he stopped the line and he said, please wear your gloves because I want you to go home safe in the same manner as you came in the morning. So that's a perspective of employee first. And it looks like in the practice, right? It is not that I'm just imposing because it's a rule, or I'm not just talking about it for the sake of talking. I'm not just preaching, I'm actually practicing it. So I think that is what I feel is about the leader who becomes more proactive and he thinks about its people. And it comes naturally, if you see, when people come first, safety naturally just follows. It is not that it becomes like, uh, I would not talk about KPIs here, or I would not talk about anything else, but it comes as a culture, as a mindset for the people.
Understood. And
Yeah,
sometimes when I look at uh, a lot of leaders in a company, some leaders are very busy all the time, right? So they don't even have the time to really look at, okay, what is important, what is this person feeling, what what is really necessary. But they're almost running to get to somewhere without getting a pulse of what is currently happening and what is actually needed. So I've seen that also happening, whereas I've also seen some fantastic leaders who, despite the kind of portfolio that they're managing, despite the large teams that they really have the patience to listen and understand what is important and do what is right. So I've seen those kind of people also, and I've noticed that it all boils down to things like focus, attention,
that is
right? And that has to kind of align with what your priorities are. If your priorities are set right, then you spend more time and effort towards that particular activity.
correct.
And when you do that organically, safety, efficiency, all these things fall in place.
Correct. I agree. I agree with you. Completely agree with you. In fact, it's something that we struggle every day when we talk to the leaders because again, you have to explain it to them in their own language, right? So sometimes we need to humanize the impact at times where we still share the real stories of employees and families affected. So it may not be that incident that happened. Sometimes, like the way I have learned in my entire career is let's not talk about the negative parts all the time. Let's talk about the positive reinforcement stories. So sometimes, I was wearing a helmet and I fell off. But because I was wearing a chin strap, my helmet did not fail and I was saved. Simple. Simple story. I was wearing a seat belt in the car. There was a bang on collision. Nothing happened to me because I was wearing. So again, that leadership gets needs to get involved there, where emotionally, when people safety becomes personal and it is not procedural. Where I'm also talking about my personal experiences, not only on the line. Then see, I've always seen that if it is part of the strategy, when I'm talking about the accountability part and all, safety metrics when I'm talking, I know I don't agree to the KPIs all the time, but definitely when I talk about the top management, when I talk about the ownership at the top level, definitely this is one of the very important points where you are talking about yours in the same seriousness that you're talking about the customer satisfaction, you're also talking about the satisfaction of your employees to that level. I'm also talking about regular reviews at board or leadership meetings on what is safety. Decision making goes to the highest level. So there again, modeling the visible leadership when I'm talking about. I remember the leaders going on the floor, they are asking safety related questions to the people, and they are also recognizing safe behaviors where one person, if he or she gets that recognition in front of other people, the person will want that, oh, next time I should get recognized, because if my leader has come, he has recognized, then again that it becomes more like a grapevine when I talk about also empowering through ownership and all, and not talking about compliance all the time, because you know what regulators require more of it if we make it in the form of a standard that talks about care for our people. I'm talking about I care for my people. I start my meetings with those safety briefings. I start very basic things, and it doesn't come overnight. Let me be very frank. It might happen because I am present and I go away, it goes off. Then it should not. Then it is not what We wanted as a deployment to happen. We wanted it as a culture change. It is not a culture change. This is just a person gate crashing or trying to push things into. So again, that inner change, that inner conviction, the inner, I would say that we say, that change has happened. The change happens over a period of time with the change in the behavior. And it will, trust me on this, whatever we go to the lowest level, to the bottom line, we talk about it, we talk to all of them, they will be ready to do it. But that push has to come from the top at times. And it really makes a difference, particularly in the plant culture, definitely, where the recognition really makes a lot of difference.
Understood.
Yeah.
How do you think like companies like a CEO, how can a CEO incentivize the entire organization to prioritize safety?
See, again, I'll go back to what I don't like to talk about, but again, um, instead of just talking to that level where the people are working, the supervisory levels or the levels above them, if it gets into their KPIs. So again, if it is in my KPI, I will ensure that the person next to me follows it. So again, that goes from top to down. It goes as a ladder. So I think that will make a lot of impact, and that has made a impact in all my previous organizations which I have worked on, and even in the present organization, where if it is in the strategy, if it is in the mission, I'm talking about my people therein, and it is sitting there somewhere, then definitely it will go down.
Okay.
Yes.
So do you think it's ideal for these kind of or for should safety be incentivized? Actually, let me put it across that way. Because it's again coming to what you said, it's such a cultural thing, and then it should not be something with somebody supervising. So there's no right or wrong way, but should it be something which is part of your, okay, I need to achieve X safety observations? Is that the right way to do it? Or is there a better way to do it?
I don't, in fact, we have done it before. And there is a result that is expected from maybe X person, and there is the same result expected from a Y person. Okay, both of them achieve it, X and Y, both of them achieved it, and maybe they overpassed it and they overshooted it. But the person who went to that result, following the safety behaviors, gets that incentive, and the other person doesn't get it. And this has been followed. This is a tried and tested technique that we have done it before. And this kind of reinforcement, I would say, or you would call it like a supported way, or maybe setting an expectation that way, has really helped. And I would like, till we reach a level where it goes in our genes and in our culture, I think the best, the policeman is a very different hat, the police culture, but incentivization will definitely help us, because we are still lagging behind by at least 20 years. When I talk about valuing my life, we're still lagging behind.
Yeah. And other thing that I have usually observed, right, is when an incident happens, then things start moving fast, right? Then you have the safety team who's called for meetings. They'll have to make so many presentations, and then okay, there's some budget which is going to be allocated for taking certain action based on whatever has been observed. So, as a safety professional in a company which is probably not the most mature when it comes to their safety culture, how can I, establish that urgency for safety within that organization so that I don't wait for something to go wrong, but instead I, make sure that things are proactively in place. But how do I get my leadership's buy-in? Because we notice that sometimes you have a lot of businesses which are growing, won't have started off with a very strong focus on safety. And you might get a safety professional who's coming in and trying to shake things up and put everything in place. So, how should they go about this and really drive a strong safety culture and get leadership buy-in for any initiative?
Well, whatever you said, I always call it like the uncomfortable truth. Because you know how it goes, right? We wait for something to happen because मेरे साथ नहीं हुआ है, I'll wait for it. तो क्यों होगा? So I think the basic thing here is one is the proactiveness that we talk about. That's all about safety, but also the empathy that the see I sometimes what happens is when I go to talk about something, it becomes because she has come because it is her role, it is her function, and she'll come and talk about it because she wants to maybe get that exposure or she wants to talk about it because otherwise, what am I doing here? Right. So, and a lot of leaders I have seen will not work unless there is an incident that has happened. They are waiting for something and then everybody starts moving on it. So that human bias, if you see, is very visible across. If you see the, uh, I would not say India. I've seen other countries as well, and it is there. Let's accept it. But then, from our perspective, few things that I have worked on that have really helped over a period of time is one is talking in their language. You give them the numbers, you show them the tangible losses which might happen because of certain. You talk about the reputation that might tarnish, and the biggest what I always say is the biggest thing is you talk to them about the compliance part and how it will impact their business. All these things together in a way that they understand. I think, again, as safety professionals, gone are the days we were just the persons like police going, catching the thief, bringing them, penalizing them, and sending them back. We have to get into this, we have to get integrated into the business and try to influence in a way that they understand. And the best way is to talk to them in terms of money, how it is going to impact their bottom lines. And that's very bluntly said, but is the truth. And why do we have to wait for something to happen to start doing things? Because that very moment, the business is also at stake. So I think over a period of time, the learning that we have also learned over a period of time, because I come from a factory culture and I've seen that part of it also, where the work was go to the shop floor, stop the line. Presently, you cannot stop the line. We don't want to be obstacles or we don't want to be line stoppers now. It is a good idea to be proactive, uh, tune the people in a way, try to definitely the behavior change is one of the things, but the leadership will understand in that language. And I think that's the best way to, because see, we are not telling them something which is wrong because that happens. So that calculation part, the study that we have done, the methods that we know, let's calculate it in that way. Show them once we conduct the HEDAs and other analysis, the assessments that we do, maybe show them it in their own way, telling them that, okay, this is the number, this is what is the problem. And if it doesn't happen, this is going to. And we need not go for everything at one go. We may prioritize, we may do a proper one, two, three mechanism and then go for it.
Understood. So basically,
Yeah.
safety professionals need to be in a position to also sell safety to the other stakeholders within the company.
We have to be marketers. Let's, I think that's what is the change, right? From what we started thinking about safety, factory inspector, safety wala, going to him, talking to him, and trying to get things done.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, we have to come out of this attitude of anything goes, or like we call it the chalta hai attitude, right? That's something that we need to come out of because I think that's a big impediment to personal development and also organization development and also country development. Do you think parenting has a role to play in that? And what do you think are the factors that are potentially causing that kind of an attitude?
See, I'll start with maybe throwing some light on why is it the chalta hai attitude in India. Typically, I'll tell you, because we tend to neglect, first of all. We have that jugaad mindset always. And see, jugaad is, in the positive way, is always good, I would say. But when I try to take this jugaad towards a shortcut, I'm actually going in the risk and shifting it again. That thought process again, what I started with talking about the culture aspect, definitely is going to make a big role. But when I talk about connecting to unsafe behaviors or to real consequences, and I'm talking to my colleagues, my families about it, I think over and over again, when I talk about it repeatedly, reiterate the things, like looking at it again and again, you see a lot of visuals are put up near the railway tracks. I'm not talking about today. I'm talking about around 13, 14 years ago. When I put a poster there, a very emotional poster showing a family member and showing that if you cross the line when the train is coming or you're doing an unsafe behavior, there's somebody sitting at home waiting for you. So think from that perspective. Maybe all those small shifts that we do definitely are going to make a difference in the chalta hai attitude. Also, trying to be result oriented at the cost of my own life is again something which we need to change our behavior. In India, typically we don't value our lives, and that's the biggest challenge which I feel when I work with my people. And it is not the typical um, factory setup that I'm talking about, but I'm talking about the white collared people as well. And coming to your point in terms of how does family or upbringing or parenting have an impact here is, I'll start by telling you a very basic thing where it all starts from home. Like when you say a phrase, which I always keep saying, that charity starts at home, same way safety starts at home. It will not come the the day you enter into the safety into a factory or an office. It has to come slowly and slowly, gradually and gradually, from where we have been brought up. We have to understand that there are a lot of non-negotiable parts of it. Some things, like a very basic thing I'll share with you. I am switching off my gas stove now whenever I leave my house, or at night I do it. My son is watching it every day. And nowadays he tells me, Mama, let me take it up. I'll do it. Now he ensures that, Mama, you forgot to switch it off. Can I go? Like, he will do it. So I think it all comes that way. My younger one, who's just he's now 4, but when he was 2, when I bought him a cycle, a small tricycle, the first thing he asked is, where is the helmet? So, so it is not that, trust me on that. I have not taught them, right? A 2-year-old, you cannot teach. But I think it all comes what you see, what you observe, you start following it, and it becomes a habit, and that habit changes into a culture. So, again, in this, when they go in the professional life, I'm very sure that this is going to translate into how seriously they respect the procedures, and then they don't follow the shortcuts and all. How I cross the road, again, I think our parents never told us that, okay, this is how you will cross the road. We saw them doing it, that they looked at the left, they looked at the right, and then they crossed the road. And this is how we learned. The same thing, if you see your parent doing, like maybe going against the traffic signal, this is what you are going to learn sitting at the back of the seat, not wearing a seat belt, not wearing a helmet. Basics, like my younger one, even now, like he's 4, but he will not drive even a tricycle without a seat belt. So I think it is not that everywhere you are just trying to be teachers or everything. Some things are observed and they come up automatically. Early experiences, maybe some tragedy in the family. I'll tell you my own experience where I lost my first cousin, the entire family, in an accident. And because of that, something stuck me, and I thought that I think this is something that I think people need to work on, where they need to change their behaviors. It's a personal conviction, right? So again, very basics, cultural reinforcement. You step into Singapore and you start wearing a seatbelt. It why? You stop at those signals. You will cross only on the zebra crossing. Why? Because we are in Singapore. So again, It is not that we don't understand. We are just neglecting and being careless about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the broken window theory, right? When you see a place which has broken windows, you assume that it is, a little unsafe. And if there is that one broken window, then it's okay to leave the other windows also broken, and the place it just deteriorates. But if
Right.
we, make those small corrections on a regular basis, and pull up the people who are not abiding by the process, or the right way to do it, or the safe way to do it, then organically it creates like that ripple effect, and everybody starts to follow what is the right way to go about it, and embody the right safety principles. I think, yeah, it's that ripple effect. I think,
Yeah,
it's
it's peer pressure sometimes. You see
yeah,
somebody doing something and you start following it, right? You see something, you say something. That's
yeah,
how we say it in quality, but the same applies here also. Don't
correct,
overlook. There is a nail from the table coming out. We see it every day, but until we get hurt, like people will not talk about it. So
true,
why to wait for that thing to happen and then start talking about
true.
it?
It's basically, if you should be the change you wish to see.
Yes, yes, correct.
Absolutely. And when everybody kind of imbibes this culture, I think
It will be
everybody
a very good country to live in.
everybody
Safe
does.
country.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. So, Ruchi, what's the one message that you want to leave people with?
Okay. Okay. So I'll start with one small, maybe my expression on it, and then I'll give that thought. So there's one thing which all of us, including me, my family members, you, your teammates, my teammates, we have to understand that safety is not just about avoiding accidents. I'm not here for that. As a safety professional, I'm saying it's all about the choices that we made. And every single day, we have to show ourselves that I value my life, I value myself, my people, and also my future. And safety is actually a very pure expression of care. And not only care, but trust also is how we show respect for ourselves. Again, the same thing that I said, our colleagues, our families. There's somebody waiting for you at home. Just remember that whenever you are doing or trying to take a shortcut. Let's choose every day to make safety not just a rule to follow, but the way we live. It's the way of our living. I think that is what everybody has to be committed to. And awareness only matters if it shows up in action. I think that's
Absolutely.
it from my end. And it is non negotiable. Very important part. You will not get the life back. And you might get a new job, you might change a lot of things, but you cannot buy life. So that is the most important thing, a rule, a reminder for everyone here. Inculcate that value, take it to the next generation. And I think that's the best gift that we can give to our generations to come. So that's it from my end. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, thank you for those profound words. And yeah, it was a pleasure to have you on the Safety Connect podcast. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sanmay. Thank you again.